So welcome everyone. I know showing up for a live conference at the end of June of 2021 specifically is a challenge. I know a lot of you are watching this because the recording is available and lives in the OCR world. You're watching this recording later, or you're even watching this on Facebook Live later because it's going to live out there. So thank you for watching. You won't be able to participate in questions. If you don't get responses, don't get mad at us. So this is one of the monthly interviews that I'm doing, and I'm super excited. This is a topic that boggles my mind. I can't get my head wrapped around. I've been telling so many people this is going to be like the most fun interview I do this year, I think, simply because it's like you guys are all just watching. I have so many questions I want to ask and so much I want to know from our guest here, Eric Bryant. And so hopefully you guys are going to learn a ton because there's so much to learn. And I was telling him right before we went on, I feel like I'm standing on a real estate railroad track. I feel like the train's coming, and I feel like blockchain, that's the train. And I don't understand how to either get on board, get out of the way. I think it's going to smash me if I don't do something to pivot, grab on. Like, that's what I feel about blockchain. So Eric, thank you very much for being here. If you take a second and just tell everybody who you are, where you work, what you do, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. It was a great intro too, because I think a lot of people feel the same way as you do, that they're sitting on that track and not understanding what that train's going to do. So my name is Eric Bryant. I am going to bring up, if it's okay with you, Dan, I'll bring up screen share right now. I am by day, I'm a mild-mannered National Accounts Director for First American Data Tree. Most of you on the webinar recognize that name, First American, but I work for a wholly owned subsidiary called Data and Analytics. So we provide nationwide property ownership and public record data, not only to our largest customer, First American Title, and the other sister companies within First American Holdings, but we do it to the industry itself. So any of that underlying data that's needed and that has to do with property ownership, public record, that's what we do. However, by night, I am the mild-mannered Southern California Regional Chair for Fibri, otherwise known as Blockchain Man. And let me tell you a little bit about Fibri before I move on. Fibri is an international organization. It is in 70 regions, and there's 125 guys and gals like me. So we're regional chairs, meaning we oversee a certain geography. For me, Southern California. For others, it might be, all of Brazil. But you can see that there's a large concentration in Europe, because that's where this all kind of started. The European Union is pretty much ahead of us at this point in time. Fibri is here as an organization to empower through education. We want to be able to create realistic expectations of the technology. We want to bring together these two crazy industries, right? Blockchain, real estate. We don't talk very well. We got to get together, have a conversation. Get rid of any fear that might be out there on either side. Believe me, the blockchain side is deathly afraid of the real estate industry as well. And then most of us on the regional chair side, not me, because I'm not a coder or developer, I'm a front end guy, but most of them are contributing through implementation of blockchain products, tools, and services. So these are people really doing these things. They're out there building it. They're CEOs, they're co-founders, they're CTOs. They're building products and services specifically for the real estate industry worldwide, not just in the US. And it's a blockchain technology that underlies it.
I have like 27 questions already.
Wow, that's only 3 slides and 27 questions.
I know, right? Because I think they're coming, but I just want to. You're going to get into the report, but will one of the next slides be like the definition of blockchain? I just want to make sure, because I don't know about everybody else watching. There's like 30 or 40 people, but maybe it's just dumb Dan. But even like okay, just want to make sure you're not assuming that we knew it, because Dan here don't know it. No, awesome. You're getting to that part. Keep going. Sweet. All right. Thank you.
A couple of things about Fibri I think are very, very important for the audience, because it's going to help you. One is our industry report, and just by chance, it's coming out tomorrow. So I don't have statistics from the 2021. Most of what my presentation will be is 2020. But tomorrow, they're launching the 2021 report. It's a huge report. It's very important to the industry. Gives you a lot of important information, kind of like this, what I'm going to show you. Again, this is 2020, but it'll show you the countries that are involved in blockchain that have companies building products and services. And you can see, believe it or not, the USA leads in the amount of companies building products. It'll tell you about what markets those products are being built in. For us, the most important, of course, is market, which is giving you the listing of properties, and investment, which talks about how to invest in real estate using an underlying blockchain technology or cryptocurrency. One of the other things that come in it, and keep in mind this is 2020, so it's going to grow, is it's actually going to give you a list of the companies who are currently creating blockchain services and tools. And it'll blow you away when you think about it, because if you look on that screen, that's at least 20. And then we've got some more. And then we've got more. And I highlighted Proppy on this because I'm guessing out of all of these companies, Proppy's the one that people may say, oh, I've heard about them, or I know about them. And if you have followed,
that's Natalia just being like all over the place, right? Like she's like
insane.
A marketing whiz.
Yes, she is. And you notice what they did 2 weeks ago with Michael Arrington's apartment building in Kiev, Ukraine. They marketed the crap out of it, and they did a fantastic job. And they lifted the word blockchain into a whole nother sphere within the industry, which was amazing and wonderful. It was a very simple thing they did. They took his apartment, they made an NFT out of it, and I'll explain all this later, but an NFT is a non-fungible token. So they created a token that represented his apartment, the real property, and then they auctioned off the token in a digital exchange. So in theory, they sold his apartment completely digitally in an auction format. And it ended up being about a $25,000 apartment, went for $95,000. And that was the hype around being the first, I'm sure. You know, it's kind of like baseball cards or something else. But they literally went through that process. Now, yes, it was in Kiev because it was easy there. It's a national data registry and all that kind of stuff. But it shows you that the process itself is possible. And believe it or not, there's even more. FIBRE, international organization, education, bring together, showing you things in that report. Go get it tomorrow. And also sign up for the webinar series there, because they do it every month, and it's really well done. And you learn so much about this technology and how it applies, and you talk to people who are really doing things, and it's fantastic. So FIBRE as an organization is who I represent today. And that's who we are. So now, what the hell is blockchain? Let me just start off with this, okay? And this is the thing that's really screwed us up over the last 3 years. Blockchain is not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a product. Blockchain is an underlying technology. Bitcoin needs blockchain in order to exist, just like an Adobe PDF needs JavaScript to exist. So Adobe PDF is the Bitcoin, JavaScript is the blockchain. It's just an underlying technology. It's not Bitcoin. It's just, that's the most famous product that uses blockchain technology. So people get all mixed up and worried. But just if you could just get that out of your head, it's going to be so much easier to learn the technology. You want to ask yourself a few questions, because if your industry needs blockchain or not. Blockchain is not always the answer. It's not the greatest thing in the whole world for everything. But if you ask yourself some simple questions, you will know whether or not blockchain is right for your industry. So if it's supply chain, or if it's finance, whatever it might be. And if you look at the questions on this screen, not only do you answer yes to one of them, which would mean blockchain is a good idea, we answer yes to every one of these in the real estate industry. And that's why blockchain has made this incredible growth over the last 2 years. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that the pandemic had something to do with the acceleration of the growth. It would have been here. We would have been where we are right now 4 or 5 years from now, had it not been for the pandemic. But with all the electronic transactions, the automation that's gone on in the last year and a half, we're there now. little bit of a prelude. And I just want to say this because you said this earlier, right? You said it's a train, and I use a snowball going downhill. And we have a choice, just like we had in 1990s, right? We had a choice to understand what the internet was. We could certainly poo-poo it, which a whole bunch of people did, and what it would mean to the industry, or we can understand it and be able to work within it. And that's what we have to do right now. And that's why it's so important that we talk about things like we're talking about it today. Transactions will become visibly faster, and they'll be much more compressed, meaning efficient, and that'll be a dramatic change. Blockchain is there in theory because of trust. We need trust in our transaction because there's so many people talking about things going on within the transaction, so many needs within it from different aspects. Everybody's got to trust each other, and blockchain does that. It gives them the security to know that it doesn't matter what people say. It's what matters is what goes into the transaction through the blockchain and stays there. It stays there forever. I like to give examples of companies so people can look them up afterwards, but ChromeAway is a fantastic company that's really working on simplifying global real estate transactions.
So hold on real quick with that. One of the questions that kicked us off was, can you give us a couple of case studies where blockchain has been used in real estate? Would they be able to go to ChromeAway probably? I'm sure that site's going to have the case studies on there for them to look at, right?
You bet. Remember that list I gave you earlier, and you get that on the report. So that list of 100 plus 120 companies, whatever it was, those are all guys doing it. So that's examples for you live and real. But guess what? I'm going to show you a couple things today that you're going to totally understand, and it will answer that question. So great. I love having that question.
Okay.
There's a couple things we're going to talk about today. One of them is smart contracts. And I want you to understand how important this particular piece of the technology is. So I've taken a piece of our industry and as an example so that people can get the visual, right? The escrow process is a person who takes a bunch of stuff from this side, gathers it together, puts it all right, and pushes it out to this side to get the transaction closed. We can literally do everything that person does now manually, automatically through software using what's called smart contracts. Proppy, as we talked about earlier, is a good example of somebody who's doing that. It's efficient, it's quick, it's accurate, and it's safe. We can probably take fraud down to less than 1% using blockchain in that the smart contract process.
Let me jump in there real quick. So sure. You're a wholly owned subsidiary of what is arguably one of the top two. I'm sure they argue who number one is, but yep. Escrow and title companies in the United States, which would be First American Title. Right. And so they definitely understand title. They definitely understand escrow. Yep. And you guys are a wholly owned subsidiary because this largest or second largest, depending on who you talk to and what day of the week it is, company in the United States sees this as how real estate transactions are going to be conducted in the future. When is up for grabs, but in the future is solid. That's what we're hearing, right? Like this isn't a maybe. Yeah. This is going to happen, which is why the companies are getting behind it.
Absolutely, 100%. And remember, today I'm representing Fibri, right? And I'm not going to be a spokesman for First American, but I will say that it's a topic that they completely understand, and they are forward thinking, and they are actionable when it comes to it. And when we think of, a lot of people think blockchain's going to disintermediate. That's the word. It's a big word. I didn't even know what it meant when I first heard it. So but they're going to take jobs, they're going to replace. It's not. It's just going to change things, just like the internet did earlier, right? Did it disintermediate everything? No. In fact, it's now that we know what it is and we understand it, it's made it easier. But did it take some book out of an office and put it online? Yeah, it did. So it changes things, it updates, it upgrades things. It's not going to replace things. It's only going to make them better, faster, stronger.
Awesome. Thank you.
And what we were just talking about, a good example of that is what Ubiquity is doing. And it's to improve the process of title, right? Improve the process of provenance, and put it into the blockchain. And it uses something called hashing. And I'm not going to go into it deeply today, but hashing is why blockchain is so safe. You literally, if you picture a file cabinet and you put manila files into the file cabinet in chronological order, you are doing what blockchain does, but it's in blocks of space and it's chained together each time. So it's like chaining together those manila files. I put something into the blockchain first. That's block number one. A 64 character hash is assigned to that block. You have to hack 64 characters to get into that block. Can people do it? Hell yeah. There's probably 100 guys in Russia right now that know how to do it. But then the next manila file goes into the file cabinet, creates a block. That block gets chained to the first block or previous block, and it gets its own 64 character hash and then changes the 64 character hash from the first block. So now if you've hacked into the first block, you have to hack in again. Then you have to hack into the second block in order to get the most current information, to hack it, to get in there and steal something or create problems. That goes on the whole time. So most blockchains are hundreds or thousands of files or blocks long. And each time at the 75th block, it goes back and changes 74 hashes. So if you think anybody's capable of going back and hacking 74 again, then hacking 75 to see what's new, you're out of your mind. It's not possible yet. Now, there's some smart 16-year-olds everywhere sitting in a basement, right, all day long. That may one day, but we have the internet anyway. The internet's hackable. We have Stripe and we have PayPal and we have Venmo. They're all hackable. MasterCard's hackable. Your bank is hackable, but they're centralized. So when you start looking at blockchain, is it hackable now? No. People argue with me all the time. What is hackable someday? Yeah, but right now what we're dealing with is hackable now. So let's use something that's not hackable and is going to be incredibly difficult as we move on. The other thing we're going to talk about today is tokenization, which is just fractional ownership. We have a really good example. It's not blockchain based, but we have a really good example of what fractional ownership is in Picasso. It's a newer company by Spencer Rascoff, who was the former CEO of Zillow. Basically, you can buy 1/8 of a vacation home or a second home, usually in Palm Springs or whatever it is, Florida, those kind of places. The theory behind tokenization is just making that digital. So it's fractionalizing like Picasso's doing, or in this case, I use the example of Realty, which is based out of Detroit. They're actively selling multifamily and or multi-unit properties through tokenization. So we'll talk specifically about it, but it's just really fractional ownership, but it's digital fractional ownership. So as I said, we got two big ones, right? We're going to talk about tokenization, and we're going to talk about smart contracts. There is much more to blockchain. Please don't misunderstand me. But let's focus on what's here now, what's going to affect us the most and the soonest, and hopefully this gives us a better understanding of what the technology can bring us. This is a very famous tokenization, and it's the St. Regis Hotel in Aspen, or St. Regis Resort in Aspen. They wanted to raise $18 million, and they wanted to offer up 20% of their property as collateral for that $18 million. So they went out and they employed a group called Solid Block to do this. They tokenized the property, sold off 20% in a digital form. What is tokenization in a nutshell? Okay, here's where you want to use those visuals, right? Tokenization is digital fractionalization, which is now done through stocks. So if you remember what happened to the stock market, a stock is a piece or an underlying security that gives you a piece of a company. Tokenization is the same thing in digital form. It's an underlying security, why they call them security tokens, that allows you to own a piece of something. Just like a stock, I own a piece of IBM, I own a piece of Apple. because I have the stock. If you have a digital token in your digital wallet, you own a piece of that company or that asset or that security. And it's all because they're digital. We put them on the blockchain, put them in those blocks, hash them up so that they're completely safe from anybody getting to them. So we're improving on security. And like I said, what's a stock? It's just a securitized asset. And so are things with tokens.
The stock market's almost, it's not tokenized, but it's almost gone that way now because you can't get stock certificates like the olden days. Like you buy a stock and they would mail you your stock certificate that said you had so many shares, you wanted to sell it. You had to send it back, or sometimes you just have the clearinghouse hold it for you, but you don't even get stock certificates. So now they're holding those assets in a digital file right now, but they're just not holding them as a token per se, but they almost are transacting business in the same model, right?
Yep. They will at some point, but I mean, where are they now? They're here, right?
Yeah.
This is where I trade my stocks. I go onto my TD app and I trade my stocks. And if I really wanted to print out a certificate, they let me do it, which is kind of fun.
Right.
I can still print out a certificate and put it on my wall like I own a piece of, Apple or something, but it's all here. And so we've already kind of transitioned using the stock market into what will be an STO, or a trading platform for digital securities, which will include real property. But that's an example of fractionalization. So if you had a property that's worth 30 million, has 100,000 square feet, you can chop it up into $300 per square feet and offer that product up for investment. So I could buy $300 worth of any property that's tokenized. So what does that do? What right now, if you're talking about a $30 million property, a commercial property in the United States, I'll bet you there's no more than 200 individuals and or groups that can buy that property. They've got to be accredited and they have to have so much money, according to the 30 million and blah, blah, blah. Only these 200 people can buy that. That sucks, man. There's 300 million people in the United States, right? 150 million of them are probably adults with money. They got $300. If I want a piece of this asset, I can get it now because I have $300, and that's what they're allowing me to invest with. It's no longer that 200 people that are this basis for investment. It can be anybody. It can be all of us average Joes. Once you have it tokenized, you sell it in what's called a standard token offering, or securitized token offering. Excuse me, they changed that. And that's just like going back to stock, right? That's TD Waterhouse on my phone. That's what an STO is. It's a token offering. It's like a little stock market for tokens. By the way, an STO is not an ICO. Okay, this is the same thing that the blockchain and Bitcoin crap, right? Blockchain is not Bitcoin. STO is not ICO. So when ICO was called initial coin offering, and it was a way for people to create coins that were going to compete with Bitcoin and then give people a chance to invest in them. Turned out to be a lot of scamming going on. So about 80% of that was scam, but it made millions, if not billions of dollars for people. ICO is not STO. STO is it's secure. It's overseen by the SEC. It has rules and regulations to it. ICO was bang, 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 Wild West. So nothing to be afraid of when it comes, if somebody's telling you, oh, it's like an ICO. No, it's not. They're just trying to scare you. It's fine.
Got it.
What are the benefits? We talked earlier about the fact that you and I can invest in a token offering at $300 for a $30 million property. We can also do it almost instantly because it's digitized, and we can do it for a super low fee. So normally real estate is historically expensive and slow and all of the things that keep it away from a larger audience. Well, that's going to change with digitization or tokenization. Anyone can invest now. Here's the fun part. We're talking earlier, that question about show me something, show me an example, blah, blah, blah. Solid Block is literally online now. You can go to this website and you see down at the bottom, I can buy property tokens. What does that mean? When I click that button, I go to a page that looks like this. It looks familiar, doesn't it? It's pretty much every real estate search site you've ever seen, going from an agent's individual IDX site up to Zillow and Realtor.com and the rest of them, right? It's just a search site. But what you can do here is crazy. There's that St. Regis that we talked about earlier. When I click on it, I get to go to a page. Now, this page also has a lot of links on it where I can download information. So I can download a complete prospectus, a package on the property, everything I want to know. And then this is the beautiful part. I can click that button that says buy digital shares. And I can go to a checkout just like I'm on Walmart.com or Amazon or any other site. I go to a checkout. I tell them how much I want and how many tokens I want. And then I choose a payment method. Now, my example stops here because I didn't buy these, but I got to the point where all I have to do is click a button and attach my whatever it might be. And notice it can do a straight wire, which is pretty normal using fiat money. I can do an electronic check by putting in my bank account information, or here it is, I can do crypto. I can buy the tokens in this property using my Bitcoin, my Ether, which is Ethereum's equivalent to Bitcoin, or I can use any other coin that might be available through this particular platform. It's normally most cryptos. There's some that they won't accept because they're a little volatile. But when you're talking about the Bitcoins and the Ethereums and the top 10 cryptos, they're going to take it. So I can buy, I just went through, I don't know how many clicks, minus the due diligence of looking up the paperwork and the history of the property. But in 5 clicks, I bought a piece of the St. Regis resort in Aspen.
So let me jump in real quick. And there's a couple questions, but I'm not going to get to them yet. But my question is superseding everybody's. So theoretically,
you're Dan Smith.
Theoretically, like 2 years from now, theoretically, I could decide that I wanted to sell my house. We're a little bit further down the pipe when this happens.
Right.
But the technology we're talking about, because Angie had asked a question, I believe, and that was, would love to more about getting escrows on the blockchain and what that would look like for us. That's kind of mine and her question. So theoretically, I could decide to sell my house and have a platform like this. The MLS would have transitioned theoretically. Yes. Yeah. And somebody could be looking for the home and be like, I want to buy that house. Now, they're not going to buy fractions of it because it's still home ownership. I want to live in said house.
Right.
A little bit down the line. And I could decide to go on there and make my offer theoretically and buy the house with wire, check, or crypto. And this would be an all cash transaction, obviously. What loans throw a new wrinkle into it. But I could buy the house almost that quickly with the blockchain and title checks and everything. It could swing from A to B. I mean, theoretically, that's someday where we can get to on this.
Isn't that awesome? And yes, theoretically, that's where we will get. Timing is the question. But go back to that property conversation we had earlier. Maybe on this page, on this search from the MLS or wherever it is, they click on, I want to participate in the auction on October 5th for this home. Then they go through what's called a KYC, which is know your customer. And that's basically a due diligence into their history. They attach their bank account, they attach their Equifax or whatever one, TransUnion, whatever one. Basically, they create a digital wallet all about them. It's called a digital identification. Then they're allowed to participate in the auction for this property on October 5th. Then on October 5th, we get that property thing. So the auction begins, people start going, I'll bid this, I'll bid that, I'll bid this. And up until their digital identification says they can't, they're allowed to bid. Then their digital identification says, well, they maxed out, they're out. So they drop out of the auction. But that's theoretically what could happen. We really could see this process and without the auction, right? It could just be, I want to buy this property because think about, was it eBay, right? I can go through the auction or I can hit buy now.
Right.
Maybe the homeowner has a price or the real estate agent has a price. They've worked it out. That's their buy now price. Somebody could literally hit the buy now button if they were KYC'd for that amount, and they could then take that, then we would basically go through a process, whatever that might be. Now it's going to drop from a 45-day escrow to a 30 to a 15 to a 7, and then gradually get down to hopefully 1 or 2 days to get this whole process done. But think about that as an improvement over what we have now. That's insane.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And it's so totally possible. All of the underpinnings are currently being set right now so that my children, and certainly my grandchildren, will absolutely buy a house this way.
Somebody else asked a question. I'm going to catch up a little bit, and I actually don't understand what they meant by it, but maybe you will. Does a token used to sell have a name? So do you name each individual token, or are you just bidding like I'm a buyer token, or is it like I'm a buyer for St. Regis token? Like they have their own individual names, right?
Yeah, they become a something token. In this case, it might be a St. Regis token, and there's different kinds of tokens, and I didn't want to get too much into it, but yeah,
cool.
Basically, tokens are created specifically for an event like selling something. Or you can use an existing token. That'll happen too, right? Third-party people will create a token that's ubiquitous and people can use it. But basically, it's the choice of the seller to either create their own private token, use a created private token, or even use a public token. It's up to them to decide. But in theory, what you're saying is true.
And 2 more questions and we're all caught up.
Let's do it.
Somebody from Facebook. Curious what you think of Decentraland. That's not Disneyland, apparently. Decentraland. And if any agents on here have clients who are buying digital plots yet.
I do not know about Decentraland, but here I am writing this down right now. Decentraland. But here's some fun. Decentraland. I like that. Here's something fun. I do know of a company called Fabrica. And these guys are actively selling bare land, right? So they haven't stepped up into single family or improved properties. Bare land called Fabrica. You can do on that site what we just did, or we just showed you at the St. Regis with real land, okay? You can go on there, search, I like this plot in the Arizona desert. It's $400. I'm going to attach my bank account. I'm going to buy that property. And then at the end, you get all your paperwork that says you own it. It's literally being done now, Fabrica. Okay. That's kind of the beginning of being able to do this at the next level, which is obviously single family residence and then up into commercial because of the size of them, right? We're talking about a lot of land that's $400. So really, one of the things that makes it attractive for blockchain is currently they're only 20% of transactions for bare land like this carry title. Because you're buying it for $400. If you pay $1,200 for a title insurance policy, it makes no sense. So you start to be able to do things that you can't do when you have that kind of low hanging fruit. So I'm guessing that Decentraland may be something similar to that, but it brings up a good point. Decentralization is a foundational piece of blockchain, and that's really important to understand what it is. Right now, if I have my money in Chase Bank, I have it in a centralized place. There's one Chase Bank not one server, but you know what I mean. There's one bank of Chase Bank servers where all of the information is. If I'm that 16-year-old Russian kid, I can hack into Chase Bank and I can affect those servers because it's centralized. It's one place. Now, physically, I know there's redundancy in a lot of servers, but it's still one on the internet. Decentralization is what blockchain uses to keep things fair. Literally, we talked about those blocks earlier, where blockchain, block. Before I can add a block to that chain, let's just use the number of 100. There's 100 nodes, 100 computers, or 100 people that are assigned to look at that transaction and verify it. If you get 100 people, it goes through and you can put a block on. Then you set a number, let's say 90 of them. I'm setting my number at 90. If 90 say yes, it goes through. If 89 say yes, it doesn't go through. It goes back through for a second look. So that's part of decentralization. 100 people or multiple nodes, computers, have to say yes to that block before it's added to the blockchain. Security. If somebody comes in and hacks, you can tell it's a hack. You can say, wait a minute, that $100 was not supposed to come out of that bank account to go to this address. So I will not verify it. Therefore, that bank account will not be released. That $100 will not be released. So that decentralization, that's part of the safety process built into blockchain.
Right. And then I have two specific real estate questions that came up.
Right.
One just popped up. Where in this process is the real estate agent? That's a great question, actually.
Same place they always were.
That's a really good question, Gary. So the same place they always were. So how
same place they always were. They're the listing agent. If they have the property, all they're doing is putting it on a decentralized blockchain-based exchange. Maybe even in, I call it a gateway drug. Maybe it's in addition to putting it on an MLS and or a Zillow or a Realtor, wherever they put it. And then they put it on this particular place. That's kind of a transition to hopefully at some point, all of their underlying technologies will be able to handle a digital transaction like this. And it's just, I'm a listing agent. I've agreed with my seller to put it on and through this process. And that's where I put it. Buyer's agents are still there sitting next to the buyers going through the process at whatever level that buyer is in need of them. Just like today, there's still a lot of transactions that go on from people who have, they're flippers, they're investors, they're institutional, whatever it might be, they're iBuyers. They only use the level of expertise that they need. And that's what's going to happen with this. It'll be the level of expertise on the buyer side that particular individual buyer needs. It'll still be a real estate agent, a realtor, and or a professional that they will need assistance from. So it doesn't, they're still there and they're basically in the same spot they were, but they got to learn how to process these digital transactions, how to be an agent for someone who's using crypto and buying a property on an STO. So you see how I use all these words.
Yep.
You have to know these things. That's why you and I are here today. If you understand it a little better and somebody wants to participate by selling their property this way, you can sit there and have a conversation with them and go, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand what you're talking about. This is my process to fulfill that for you.
And then one other question, which is what happens to buyers' right to property inspections and et cetera? Termite, I would throw in there, inspection. How do you close those in 2 days using blockchain?
You may not be able to close them in 2 days now, but you certainly will at some point. And they are the same. Again, they're the same as they are now. They're an option on the buyer side. Does the buyer want to do an inspection? Yes, check this box, and go through this process and the inspection can happen. Do they want a termite? Yes. Okay, then it can happen. So it's really just a digital form of what we're doing now.
Got it.
But it's in different places. So you have to know where those are.
Got it. Okay, perfect. All right, we got all the questions answered. We're caught up. I feel like I know about 7,000% more than I did 34 minutes ago. Keep going.
All right. So now I told you I was going to focus on two things. We've already talked about half a dozen things, but I'm focusing on these two. Tokenization, I hope everybody gets a good feel for that. If not, keep asking questions, fire them off. Dan can get them to me. You can send them to me. I don't care. I'm here to answer them. The next one is smart contracts. We touched on it a little bit earlier, in that it could be the escrow process. Even at a smaller level, right now, a lot of transactions employ a transaction coordinator, where the agent and or the broker does not do that transaction coordination themselves. They hire someone, they're in-house, they're a third party, but it's really putting the file together, sending it to escrow. All that putting the file together is exactly what a smart contract does. So literally you could click a button and say, be a transaction coordinator, smart contract, and it does it. And it prepares the entire file the way you set the rules as an agent or a broker and sends it to escrow. Now that could be a standard escrow, it could be a blockchain escrow, right? And so if it sends it to a standard escrow, the officer opens it up, does their thing. If it goes through the blockchain, it's all digital. So it's a digital transaction coordination on the blockchain, gets sent to a digital escrow on the blockchain, which then goes to, in most cases, a lender or other participants, a title company, and they complete the transaction and move on. So smart contracts can do that process. And here's the visual for you. This man is a human smart contract. He has a predetermined set of rules that he follows every day in order to make sure that intersection runs freely, and when you want to get to from one side to the other, from beginning to end, this man knows exactly what to do. It's a defined set of rules. This guy's a human smart contract. A smart contract is very similar to a paper contract, right? Think about it. Two or more parties agree to something. They enter their conditions into it. They execute on those conditions. Compensation is completed. That's the basis of a contract. It's also the basis of a smart contract, which is a digital form of that. It also makes it, because it's in blockchain, it's immutable, which means it can't be changed. And it's distributed or decentralized, which leads to that verification that it's all true and you can trust it. And all of this is, a smart contract is nothing more than code. Ethereum is the leader in smart contracts, and they use code that's called Solidity to do it, which we talked about earlier. It's just like JavaScript. Solidity is JavaScript. It runs the smart contract. So we're not doing things here that are different or insanely crazy. It's just code, but it's written in such a way that it uses these things like immutability and verification and distribution in order to make it a safe, fast transaction. So if you put this simple, two people agree, they meet the terms and conditions, it goes into the blockchain, somebody pays for it, you get a certificate at the end that says you own it, and you're a homeowner. That's what a smart contract can do. It takes electronically these steps into play. So let's do two simple real life examples of what a smart contract is, and hopefully this helps you feel comfortable with what they are and why they're going to be so big, or why they are already so big in our industry. You go up to a vending machine. You have a set amount in order to get your candy bar. You look at it, it says $2 to get the candy bar. So you choose A1, which is the candy bar that you wanted, and it distributes your candy bar out. Process we go through every day, all of us, simple. Never even think about it. We just do it. But it's the same process as a smart contract. Agreed upon price. That's what I want. Once I've fulfilled my obligation of giving you the $2, you give me the chocolate bar. Deal? And the deal is done. One more. Now I'm going to get it a little more advanced in this example. So Sally goes to the airport and her flight is delayed. Instead of having a problem with that, a smart contract can make it a good experience. Sally has an idea. She is going to purchase delay insurance in the form of a smart contract from the airline. And she's going to do it through an app. So AmericanAirlines.com, do you want to order delay insurance? Yes. Then American Airlines puts into play a smart contract. And it basically says, if this person purchases the insurance, and if, okay, we're getting into that if this, then that, right? If the plane is 2 hours late, if that's the agreed upon time, this person gets a 20% refund, and it goes right into her phone. So the contract is an if this, then that. If she buys the insurance, if the flight is late, then you put that amount of money in her account. And so now her flight is delayed, but she's getting 20% off, and it goes right into her telephone, right into her smart wallet. That's a smart contract that makes things better. It makes things, less stressful. And there's billions of examples of how that can be done. But hopefully with this, you saw the visual of if this, then that, because that's what a smart contract is. And now you can start applying it to all the things in a transaction, because that IFTTT, IFTTT, there you go. That applies to almost everything in the transaction. Somebody told me there are 180 steps to a real estate transaction. And it's do this, then do this if that was done, and then do this. And it's a lot of them are in order. So they have to be done prior to the next one that can be done. That's a smart contract. If the one prior is done and the conditions are met, then you complete this transaction and move on to the next. Smart contracts in a nutshell. You can start to see where it might apply in a lot of different places. That one right there kind of shows you what escrow might look like. You can, or transaction coordination, excuse me, in the blue, escrow down in the bottom left. It also works in data exchange. If this person needs this data and they have met the criteria of being approved for it and paying for it, then let that data flow. And then my favorite part, we talked about that transaction earlier that might take or will take place at a certain point in time, where all of that purchasing a home, the transactional process is on the blockchain. At the very end, we just send them a digital key and they open their own door and into their new house because they've been completely approved. Therefore, that key is now active and usable at that front door. So what do I want you guys to come away from here? I want you to understand it better. I want you to know that it's here. And it's, you saw by those 120 plus companies, and tomorrow with the new industry report, I'm sure that number's going up. We talked about some examples of Property and Ubiquity and Fabrica and Realty and all these people who are doing it, and you don't even know that it's happening. It's just happening. There's nothing to be afraid of. As a very wise man that I know once said, it's just code. It's just code. We're just better. Blockchain is the financial bolt-on to the internet. It's now going to be safe, accurate, and fast, and it's going to bolt on to the internet so that it's done digitally and electronically. And that's it.
You know where I come from with this? It's always a little contrarian, I think, to what a lot of agents come to. It is we're a very always fear-based industry. We're always trying to figure out who's trying to replace us, or who's trying to take our jobs, or who's trying to, get rid of agents. But I look at it like, if we go back to the internet and having the MLS that we have today versus the MLS that we used to have, like when the pink books went away. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about, but some of you totally know what I'm talking about. Right? I was a pink book guy.
I know what you're talking about.
Pink books went away. It was a little bit of a struggle. Like brokerages were we're not going to do that. We've always had the book, right? Yep. And other brokerages are like, hey, I think it's gonna be a lot better having it online. We get like more pictures, not just one tiny black and white square with 9 homes to a page with some stuff. We can show virtual tours. We can show video walkthroughs. I mean, that didn't all happen when we went to computers, but it has progressed to that, right? Yep. So I come at this as a place of, okay, geez, if I just really look at it, I can probably make a case that, well, this sounds like you're trying to replace the real estate agent. Not you, Eric, but just the industry is trying to replace the real estate agent. But that's not really the case. I think it's a way for real estate agents, we just have to change our mindset to do business differently, to do it more effectively. How great would it be to get a buyer and seller, to be representing one of those sides, to put that transaction together, to not have it suck the life out of me 30 to 45 day endeavor of purgatory of what I got to go through to get that transaction closed, to get my commission check. And what if I could streamline that whole process? My clients are going to be happier. They're going to send me more referrals because it was such a great process, not just 45 days of hell. And if I can get that transaction done start to finish in a 7-day window seamlessly, someday in the future, not yet, that would actually be pretty cool for me as an agent. How much time would I get back in my life, not having to babysit all of these deals, not having to do all of these little things?
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's exact, and it's the truth. I mean, what you're saying is the absolute truth. You just got to look back at the internet and say, did it take the real estate agent out of the process? No, it made it different, and you had to learn it. You had to understand online processes. So it doesn't take you out. It's a new educational piece, and really, I think it does have the ability to thin the herd a little bit, because there's going to be a certain percentage, maybe small, it might be small, it might be big, I don't know. They're not going to learn it. They're not going to learn blockchain, and they're going to be gone. But there's also, and somebody once told me that 20% of the industry does 80% of the business. So we're talking about people who have a passion for what they do, and they learn the things they need to learn, and they take the classes they need to take, and they do read the things they need to read. And when it comes down to this technology, that's all you got to do. And then you'll be ready to transact in a new world, just like we were in the 90s, and just like we have been, ever since, whenever there's been some type of change. Now, granted, there's never been a change like this since the internet itself. So there's going to be some frustrations and things that go on, but it's just education. It's just learning how to do the new process. And believe me, there's going to be more difficulty and more people who need more help when it comes to this new technology, because sure, buyers and sellers know a lot about regular transactions now. They've had 150 years to learn. They're not going to know as much about these new transactions. They're going to need help. So they're going to go to an agent or a broker or a loan officer, right, who know what the hell they're doing in a blockchain world, and that's who they're going to employ. So it's just different. It's just new.
So a couple of things. One, what's the name of the two different worlds out there? Somebody wanted to clarify. Fibri, that is FIBREE. That is the blockchain world where Eric spends his night superhero evenings,
Yeah.
which is different than the first American wholly owned subsidiary data company.
Yep.
That you're talking about. What is the name of the first American wholly owned subsidiary though?
First American Data and Analytics.
First American Data and Analytics. Somebody wanted to get the two different names for differentiation.
Used to be Data Tree, but it changed its name.
Okay. And then somebody said, hey, this is a good discussion, but what is the agent value add? As in, my grandkid could probably do this because they're good on computers. And I think that's the point that scares most agents. That's a really great question. I think that's the point that a lot of agents like, where's my value add? Well, that's exactly, your value add isn't in the fact that you found them the property. They had Zillow or Realtor.com or something, some portal for that. Your value add wasn't that you could open the door for them because you had a lockbox key, so they're forced to use you. Because that's slowly but surely going away too, with companies like Open Door and using the tech on the app on their phone, just be able to pop the door open and go in and look. Your value add isn't that you know how to fill out a contract, because we can pay somebody $18 an hour to teach them, and send them to Gov Hutchinson's class, everybody, to teach them to fill out a contract correctly and then just look at it. Your value add is actually local expertise. Your value add is actually market knowledge on pricing. Your value add is understanding all the intricacies of the neighborhood and the price and the market that they're working in. Your value add is potentially understanding blockchain when nobody else in your entire marketplace. Ask Mark Zuckerberg. You guys want to look her up. Mark Zuckerberg is in Texas, dominating all blockchain transactions in the state of Texas because she's the only one who knows how to do it, right? And so how much business is it driving to her that way? So your value add is not in the being the gatekeepers of information that we used to be. Your value add is in being that advocate, that resource, and that knowledge base for the future buyers and sellers, I believe.
I'll drop the mic. You said it perfectly. I can't add to that. It's your value add is what it's always been. Be the local expert, and then understand the new technology and the ways that things are going to be done in the future, so that you can support your buyer/seller.
Who pays? Is there a price per charge per document? And that's all negotiable, right? I think just like escrow is. Although I know we always put check, each to pay their own. But I mean, it could be seller to pay it all or buyer to pay it all. It is a negotiation, right?
It is, and each company, whichever software you use that's using blockchain as an underlying technology, they'll have their own terms and conditions, but overall, it's significant. It will always be significantly less than it is today, because
Yes,
you're dealing with manual processes and an amount of time that's very large, where it'll be very small, and software processes.
Facebook question. Love this one. Wondering when, not if, when you think crypto loans will become adopted in the mainstream and then eventually be preferred over big bank loans.
It's already there, and there's a lot of statistics that show that it's far better. I mean, Celsius is a great example of that. But you can literally get your loan in a matter of minutes through the Celsius process. Of course, after you've gone through your KYC, if you remember, that means know your customer. Once you have a digital wallet that identifies you and your purchasing power, you could go on to Celsius and get a loan in a matter of minutes, and it's a very low charge to do so. So it's
so you just go get your pre-qualification.
Yep.
And then you're ready to rock and roll with your line of credit, essentially.
Yeah, you watch out for Rocket Mortgage, because Rocket Loans, Rocket Mortgage, Rocket Homes, they are super active in this space, and they are working on a product right now that will basically get you your loan in 10 days and eventually 10 minutes. And it's all through digital identification and pre-qualification. I mean, real, right? We've had this pre-qual letter bullshit, sorry, for years, and it's garbage. It's absolute garbage. It doesn't mean anything. Now it's real pre-qualification. On my phone is a wallet that shows you that's connected to all these places, but you can't see that. You can't see my bank account, my loan, my stocks and bonds, my real estate assets that I own. You can't see what creates my value, but this wallet will tell you what my value is, and there's no denying it. It's absolute truth, because the way it was done. Now I can just go boom, 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 and you give me a loan, because it says this person is going to pay this loan back if it's under $700,000. It's almost guaranteed. It's so much better than our current process, because now it's a bunch of people deciding, well, based on this and based on that and blah, 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 blah. This is real actionable data that decides whether or not this person qualifies.
Not some processor like sitting in like Pensacola, Florida one afternoon messing up your deal at the very last minute on day 29 of the escrow, right?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And that doesn't happen in the digital identification world.
Well, Ubiquity. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying, keep an eye on them. They're working with a company called Finicity, who's a MasterCard company, a wholly owned subsidiary of MasterCard. They're connected with one of the credit bureaus. I think it's Experian. So they're working on a real product with MasterCard's backing, right? This is serious stuff that will go into the Rocket loan process that will get that loan done in, right, like I said, 10 days originally, 10 minutes eventually.
Ubiquity platform, is it or will it be a public offering?
I don't know. Nathan Wozniak, who's the CEO and co-founder of Ubiquity, is also a regional chair for Fibri in Toronto. And he has never expressed whether or not his future plans include going public.
Okay.
But
Laylene, you'd asked a question, but I think he answered it. Your information is protected. When you go into the blockchain, the seller doesn't get to see your social and your bank account and that kind of stuff. They just know that you're qualified to make the offer that you've made. They don't even get to see that you can necessarily what your peak is. You might be qualified for $4 million, but you're just trying to buy a $700,000 house. They're only going to see that you're qualified to make the purchase that you have just offered to make. They're not seeing the limit. They're not seeing the devils and the details that went behind coming up with that formula, those social security numbers, those bank account numbers. That's all protected.
Yep, 100%.
Perfect. And then Mike, you talked about however, have you envisioned market values, like stuff like that? There's so many different things that can come from this. There's so many different things that could be like, wow, how's this going to affect me? And how's this going to affect me? Mike's question was about Zillow's market value plans now. And the 2007 Zestimate. And look what it's done. If you guys haven't checked Zillow this week, you should, by the way, because the new Zillow's Zestimate is out. It looks different. It's zestier to hear
That's
them pitch it, right? It's
also
zestier,
better.
but
It's also much better.
yeah, it's way better than it was last week,
Do
right?
you
They're making
remember
big changes.
4 years ago, I think it was, Zillow held a contest for developers. They gave away $1 million
Yeah.
to the developer who came up with the best AVM. Freaking genius, because they had like 30 participants in it and they chose one based on, what their own criteria was, but it was a hell of an AVM. And then they improved upon it and they've added a lot of things into it. And now the Zestimate is no longer the joke it was at one point, but everyone has an AVM, right? And they get better and better every day. And so that will be the process by which things are valued initially. But just like today, it doesn't matter what you see on an automated value. You're going to ask a professional, do you agree with that? And what are your opinions on it? And we've got some amazing software that says, okay, here's the AVM, right? Here's $500,000 that the house is worth. But let's talk about all these other things that could change that, either a plus or a minus. And you start putting them in, the AI and the ML start to come in and they go, well, now it's worth $528,000 based on what you just told me. So the process is 100% better than it was in 2007. And you should watch out, because the Zillow Zestimate is now the basis for the Zillow iBuyer program.
Yeah.
That's the number they're going to buy it for.
Yep. Man, we're going a little bit over. Thank you so much for being. Who knows? Who knew? 3-4 years ago, when I happened to randomly run into you on a train platform in Oakland, as we were both flying into a real estate event up in Oakland, and we ended up on the same train platform. And both of our buddies, Jesse was sitting from Call Action. Jesse Bedouin was sitting was standing right between us. And he's like, "Have you guys met?" And we were all waiting for a train to take us into downtown San Francisco. And that's how we met. So I've enjoyed our friendship. I enjoy learning from you. Even 4 years ago, you're like, "Hey man, this blockchain thing, have you heard about it? I'm starting to check it out." And now you're like, it's so much has happened and you've been a wealth of information for us. So thank you very much for being here today, sharing with everybody. If people want to reach out to get more information, first place you should go is fibre.org, FIBREE.org, right? That's the first place you should go. Yep. If you have questions for me, as always, go ahead and reach out to me, by Dan Smith, on every social media outlet channel available known to man, by Dan Smith, BYDANSMITH. And if you have any information, Eric, that you want to share with them, I know there it is. There it is, everybody, eric.bryant@fibre.org. Reach out, get some other questions answered from Eric, our superhero by night in the blockchain world. Thank you for being here, my friend. OCR, as always, thank you for having us on and allowing me to bring some great guests to share with everybody. Next month, I am back on again. Let me see. Next month is June. So next month, I'm doing one of my hour-and-a-half classes, everybody. So be here for that. That is going to be on the 14th of July, same time, 10 to 11:30 for that one. So be on here. Looking forward to it. And then Jordan Levine, economist from CAR, will be here in August. And he's not just going to be doing his economic forecast and sharing his PowerPoint like he does a lot, and you might have seen. It's going to be very interactive, like we just were with Eric, that we're going to be asking him questions. He's going to have some slides, but we're going to really dive into it. What does that mean for agents as far as listings and buyers and offers get accepted and what's coming down the pipe? So it's going to be a real interactive economic session, not just watching an economic report. So get that on your calendars too. Everybody, again, thank you. Eric, thank you. Sabrina, OCR, thank you. Everybody who attended, thank you. We will talk to you soon.